Hi everyone, in this review we will be taking a closer look at the Aputure VS-2 FineHD 7-inch monitor, which is essentially a full HD monitor packed with features, and all of that for under $300. So before we get into the actual monitor, I want to show you what it came with. As soon as I opened the box, I knew that this monitor means business because it came in a case that is quite a bit bigger than the actual monitor and includes pretty much everything you might need to start shooting right away. Apart from the usual stuff like stickers, manuals, cleaning cloth and the actual monitor, we get the sun hood, 2 HDMI cables, 1 mini, 1 micro, a USB cable for firmware updates, charger, Sony NFB type battery, and a D-type cable for connecting this monitor to something like high capacity V-mount battery. We also get this articulating arm, which can be fitted onto a camera hot shoe or a 1/4 thread on your rig. It's safe to say that we get quite a few accessories for the money, but now let's move on to the actual monitor. While the brushed metal finish at the front and the rubberized finish at the back might not be to everyone's taste, overall monitor feels pretty solid and certainly better than the Lilliput monitor I had before. So if any of you used Lilliput monitors, that's a little reference for you. At the back, this monitor looks pretty much like any other, so we'll not spend much time here. And at the front we have the power signal switch, menu button, as well as 4 directional buttons which can be preset to your favorite features, and you can then see what presets you have on the bottom of the screen that remind you which one is which, so you don't have to keep guessing which directional button will switch on your picking or zebras. You can see it right on the bottom there. Next up, let's take a look at the functions of this sub $300 monitor. There are a lot of various features, but I will go through my favorite ones, otherwise we will be here all day. And right away, second from the top, is my favorite function of this monitor, the false color. This was my must-have feature on my next monitor. I had it and used it on my Zakuro EVF, but I often had to remind myself which color represented a certain IRE setting. Thankfully, this monitor has a scale on the bottom, so if you are a bit like me, you'll definitely find that function useful. There were reports that false color on this monitor didn't work too well, but Aputure released a new firmware to address that issue. I've downloaded and installed it on my monitor, and I can report that I'm pretty happy with the readings I'm getting out of it. And it's also nice to know that they are listening to the problems and bugs that this monitor can potentially have, because I think it's still a fairly new monitor, and it also gives me hope that we might get more features in this monitor in near future. Next on the list we have zebras, which can be switched between 70 and 80 IRE, which is cool, but to be honest, I would love to have quite a bit more control, ideally from 0 to 100 switched manually, and hopefully this is something that we might also get in future updates. Next one down is the picking function, and while a lot of cameras nowadays have such function, we still have some cameras that don't, like Canon DSLRs. And it's nice to have this feature in a monitor anyway, because at a touch of a button you can switch between different sensitivity modes, as well as quite an unusual highlight mode, which in certain circumstances will give you the most accurate reading of where the focus is. You can also change the color of picking, so there is nothing missing from this feature. Moving on, we have a nice and large histogram, which is yet another nice feature to have, because not all cameras will display histogram in certain recording modes, and more exposure aids you get in the monitor, better results you'll get in the end. Next one down is the volume bar, which is positioned on the left side of the monitor, and it's very useful when you want to monitor your sound. It's pretty responsive and clear, and in fact it's better than the one I have on my Sony camera. There are a few more features in the assistant functions menu, but the next one that is really interesting to me is the mark section, and the first feature in this section is the center mark, which is a simple but very useful feature, because I always want to know where the middle of my frame is, and a lot of cameras do not have this feature, so it's really good to have such feature in a monitor. And the next feature in the mark section is the safe area, and here you can switch between various safe zones, if you are planning to crop your image in post. For me, the most useful one is the CinemaScope, but I also like the 4x3 mode for the instances where I will shoot with a 2x anamorphic lens on a 16:9 sensor, and I will most likely like to crop the size. The 4x3 mode will give me that safe area, and I will make sure that I frame within that area, and when I crop it, I will not crop anything important out of the image. Talking about anamorphics, this monitor even has 1D squeeze mode, which is absolutely unheard of on a cheap monitor like this. And even though it's just one setting, there is no adjustment of how much you can unsqueeze the image. It's still massively useful when you are shooting with anamorphic lens and you want to get a more natural looking image right on your monitor, rather than looking at the squeezed image and then hoping that it's gonna be good in post. And finally, let's move on to the main reason why this monitor stood out to me this much. The resolution on this display is 1920 by 1200, which is actually over Full HD. And that extra resolution is used for the camera and monitor settings on the bottom, and you still get the Full HD resolution for your image coming out of the camera. Just as a comparison, my previous monitor had a resolution of 800 by 600, which honestly wasn't that great for focusing. And my goal for next monitor was to have a resolution of around 1280 by 800, because anything above that just wouldn't be affordable at all. So resolution of over Full HD is absolutely unheard of. At least I don't know of any monitor that comes close at a similar price range. In fact, I don't know of many monitors that offer Full HD resolution anyway, at any price point. Being an IPS panel, the viewing angles, colors and contrast are really good as expected, but right out of the box the colors didn't match my camera. Thankfully there are settings within the menu to adjust that, but I did not spend too much time on that because I use few cameras and I do not want to be switching between various settings all the time, so I keep it fairly neutral. But if you have just one camera, getting close to your desired image should be quite easy. At the price point, I think this monitor is absolutely amazing and I should not be complaining about anything, but if I had to be very critical, there are a few things that I would like to see improved. To start with, loading time. When you switch the monitor on, and I will do it now, it's like waiting for a laptop to load because it takes whole 15 seconds to do, and sometimes when you want to start using monitor right away, it can be a bit annoying. Still hasn't loaded. Okay, here you go, nice graphics, and then you know you're ready. Lastly, I would have preferred if this monitor had a matte rather than a glossy finish, which would help with reflections in bright light, but thankfully there is a hood which takes some of those out. And really, these are just some very minor complaints in this otherwise very good monitor. I absolutely love mine and can't wait to use it on my next proper production in a few weeks time. And if you are looking for a monitor for under $500, I highly recommend checking this one out. I hope you enjoyed this review and I will see you in one of my next ones.